So these are my first impressions on Spider-Man 2. I'm playing it in fidelity mode, um, and it's a very, very smooth experience, even when it's not in performance mode. I find games like that are much easier to play at 30 FPS over a shooter, which I would most often play in performance mode. Though, I mean, I would maybe play like Dead Space in fidelity mode because it targets around 40 FPS, which is, I think, an adequate level for a single player shooter. Spider-Man 2, I mean, it's fabulous. The design is amazing. The colors of the game of New York City, fantastic. One thing that my wife has joked about is the fact that, New York City is never this empty. Um, but I don't think that the population of the area is anything that I've really noticed. Myself. Um, it's obviously more packed in real life in Times Square, but when you're swinging by, you don't really notice these things. Um, both Peter and Miles are uniquely distinct in their play style, um, especially with Miles's invisibility ability that makes him a little easier to play with because you can always cloak in an encounter and regain your bearings. Um, I got to the point where Peter gains the symbiote costume. I would say I'm probably halfway through the game, and he plays a lot more aggressively. And I would imagine his his moveset is more strong than Miles's. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel I'm knocking out opponents in a few less hits than Miles, so it's more of like a brawler, you know. The Spider-Man gameplay that we know and love from the last two entries is back, and it's truly refined. I mean, I like to think that this is Arkham City combat or Arkham Knight combat on steroids. It's just as fun, if not, I would say more fun in Spider-Man. They've really mastered this very frenetic, very palpable combat system. Um, I've never once gotten frustrated with a fight and didn't know that it was like my problem that I didn't dodge or parry correctly. I felt that the encounters were always fair, especially with the abilities Miles and Peter have, as well as their gadgets, which they share. I've never felt that, you know, I was, um, I was, fought unfairly in an encounter. So, that being said, it's quite a nice, quite a nice, you know, um, combat system. Um, as for the story, I think it's an amazing Spider-Man story. Um, Similar in quality to Spider-Man and Miles Morales. Um, though I think it even shines above, definitely above Miles Morales's story. Not to say that it was bad, but it was not at the same caliber. Miles Morales felt like a half game or like an add-on more over the original. Um, if you're into comics and Spider-Man stories, this is gonna feel right at home. It has the feeling of a very real and grounded Spider-Man story. Um, you know, Spider-Man's always been about that real and grounded hero. But the way him and Mary Jane are at this point in their relationship, especially coming after the break that they took in their relationship in the original Spider-Man. for PS4, PS5. And then being back together, it feels very good. And also, Mary Jane is a very real and believable woman in this game. She's not hypersexualized as she oftentimes is in the comics, which is a real plus and really adds to the story uh, because she's a real relatable character. She seems like a real woman, um, trying to make it on her own. And in this set of stories, the roles have kind of been reversed, where Mary Jane is the Daily Bugle writer, and Peter is past his Daily Bugle days. So that's an interesting flip in the roles. Um, Harry Osborn comes back, but I'm not going to spoil anything. Uh, you know, I think the trailer spoils itself. Um, once you play the original game, Miles Morales, you know what's going on with Harry. You can kind of connect the dots with what's going on with him in the game. But really, I think there's elements of Agent Venom in this, with Harry kind of being similar to Agent Venom, and that's all I'll say about that. Um, at least where I'm at in the story. I know it's obviously going to change, um, but yeah, I'm still fighting Craven and the reptile. So I'm kind of I'm not towards the end game yet at all. Um, honestly, I'm loving it. I have run into a few glitches where missions wouldn't complete, so I've restarted to checkpoint. Um, there's this one mission where I needed to talk to some NPCs, and they were T posing, um, and they wouldn't you know they wouldn't interact with me. They're not having any of the game breaking glitches that the other people who bought the physical copy have, which is good. Um, I got it at 12 o'clock midnight, which would have been really disappointed if I want to be able to play. And I'm taking off Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, October 25th, half day from work, so I can continue working on the game and hopefully really put my efforts into it and at least complete the story. Um, the original Spider-Man was one of the few games that I platinumed on PlayStation. And I thought it was a very fair platinum, and I think the same thing is going to be for this one. Um, and I'm probably going to do that as well over time after I beat the story. Um, as last thoughts, I mean, the suits are fantastic, just like they were in uh, both 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 games in the series. I really like the fan service with the spider bots and the suits and everything. It's just really great. And last thing, I really love the Miles Morales stories about family, about him and his mom and how they get along, and also Miles's relationships. I think those are really great. They really speak to me. Um, as Miles being kind of like a new Peter, of course, a different story, a different origin, but definitely like a new iteration of Spider-Man that really hits home with the inner child in me. Um, I'm 30 years old now, so I mean, being 17 or 16 or whatever Miles is maybe he's 18. I think it's probably 17 or something. It's not that far away, and I remember being in his shoes and definitely feel like I can relate. So they wrote him very well. As for Peter, Peter's written it extremely well as well, but it doesn't hit the same way. His character growth doesn't hit the same way as Miles, in my opinion. So that's my first impressions after playing about 10 hours of the game, and probably more like 8. Um, and yeah, I look forward to beating all of it and swinging through New York City a lot more. Um, for somebody who grew up with Spider-Man 2 on the GameCube, these games are fantastic. They really scratch that itch from swinging through New York City in a way that the GameCube, that generation Spider-Man never could. So Yeah, definitely seeing this as a game of the year contender, most definitely. That's it. Thanks.